In this video, I'm going to go over the steps for creating the set for tracking unique website visitors. It's a short homework assignment that demonstrates the uses of sets by putting it in a semi-practical application for students to understand how we can use sets, as opposed to, let's say, a list or a tuple. So in this assignment, we're asked to write a Python program that tracks unique visitors' IDs to a website. You will then use a set, to store the visitors' IDs, ensuring that each visitor is only counted once. This assignment will help us understand how sets work in Python and how to use them to filter out duplicate data. So along with creating this set, I also wanted you to use some of the methodologies that we'd already learned, such as creating a function. So I wanted this placed in a function, and then of course we'll call the function once the code is written. You'll notice that we have some work to do. We need to set up the set constructor, and we'll have to add the visitors function, and then we'll create a list where we actually generate our users list. This of course is just hard-coded. This is just for an example to demonstrate how this could be done. So we'll hard code some users in here, and then we'll process each one as we go through the a for loop and send them to the function. Of course, on the output, we're going to want to know the total number of unique visitors after processing all of the visitor IDs. We'll use the built-in len function to determine the number of elements in the unique visitors set, and I'll be explaining this every step of the way. At the end of the day, we want to have a working Python script that will have all of this working, and then of course what we want to be able to turn in is a screenshot of the code working correctly. And of course I'll let you read through this. It's just things that I expect in the code, such as correctness, code quality, and functionality. And then once that's done, then as an extra challenge, what I'd like you to do is create another call to the function that allows us to enter more information, so additional users, and that won't be hard-coded, that we could just enter them in and have them count them, still using the list function that we created. Okay, so this is the, you already have a copy of this homework assignment, and so now I'll move this out of the way and we can begin to work through this. Okay, so you can see I have the idle up, Python's idle, and I already ran a test to make sure that everything was functioning, and of course it was. So I'm going to take, before we start here, I'm going to go ahead and set up the unique visitors. So this will be an empty set, and we're going to do this externally. Now here we'll be using the set constructor. So right there's the set constructor. It's empty because we're going to be adding our unique visitors to the set. Well, actually all of our users, and then it'll be determining which ones are. Oh, let me get rid of this. That is not what I wanted. There we go. My goodness. Talking and coding are not something I can do well. So unique underscore visitors, and of course this is going to be assigned the set. Remember, this does not mean equal in coding. It's what we're really saying is that we're going to have a set, and this set is going to be assigned to this memory location that we are calling unique underscore visitors. So, or you could say unique visitors is assigned the set, the empty set. Okay, and then the very next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating our function. And we already have from our homework assignment, we already know that that's going to be called add visitor. So remember, def is our reserved keyword that tells the compiler that what comes next is going to be a function. Remember, your function names should always be descriptive, so that way a programmer can look at this and know what's happening right away. So we want our names to be intuitive. So here we're going to have a parameter called visitor underscore ID This parameter will be taking arguments as they're passed to the function. Okay, I'm going to move this over here so we can see it a little bit better and follow along. See if we can do that. I don't know if it'll work quite well. Let's see here. I shrink it, but it might be not too readable. Okay, I think that's good enough. All right, so we have completed steps 1. We have our constructor, we have the parameter set up, and looks like unique visitor setup, and we're on step 2. We've started to create our function. Okay, so let's continue from there. And the first thing we need to do is we need to be able to tell if a visitor ID or an argument once it's passed to the function, if it's unique or if it's not unique. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to check for duplicates, and we're going to add the visitor and handle duplicates. We're going to do all of this right here, and we will be using an if statement to check the membership in the set. Okay, so we're right here on this step right here. Okay, so let's continue forward. All right, so using our if statements, we're going to say if, and we're going to use this same parameter right here, and we're going to say if the visitor ID in unique visitors, I guess it's just visitor. Maybe I should say visitors. Yeah, let's do visitors because it is plural. So let's say visitors. So I changed it up here so to match down here. So the set and then the set here. So we're saying if the visitor ID in the unique visitors, so inside the set, and we're going to say if it's in there, so if it already is existing, then we want to say this has already been counted. So we're going to say print. And I'm going to just copy and paste this part in because it's kind of lengthy. And let's do that right now. So here what we're saying is we're going to be formatting this string, and it'll be taking in a couple of parameters or variables in this case. So that's what the F symbolizes, that this is going to be happening right here with the curly brackets. So wherever we see a curly bracket, we're taking in a parameter or an argument. So here's print and visitor, so it's just a string, and then right here in this single quote inside of the curly brackets we have visitor ID, so whatever the visitor ID is, because we want to restate it, and we're going to output this to the console, has already been counted. Alright, so that part takes care of the case where it's already in there. Else, and remember this is the dichotomy, it either exists in the set, the visitor either exists in the set already or does not exist. So if it did exist, we're going to say that they've been counted. If they're not in the set, then we can just use an else statement to handle that case. And so we're going to say unique underscore visitors And what we're going to need to do here, remember in the else case, the visitor does not exist in that set. So that means we need to add them to the set. So we'll use the add property. So we're going to use the add property to add the user to the set. So we're going to add that parameter. Let me write this up real quick, and I'm going to copy the print thing because I don't want to do that. Type that all up. Okay, so here's what happens. The parameter comes in, the argument comes in here on visitor ID. We check to see, is the visitor ID already in the set unique visitors, which we created here. If it's in the set, we say it already had been counted, and so it stops at the if statement. Otherwise, if it's not in there, then we say we need to add it because it doesn't exist. So we're going to say unique visitors. So the set dot add, we're going to use the add property, and then we add the visitor ID that was passed as a parameter or an argument. And we're also going to say that the visitor ID, we're going to output it as a parameter. You can tell because of the curly brackets. Added. So we're going to let the user know that that's been done. All right, so that takes care of all of this. It checks for the duplicates, adds the visitor, and handles the duplicate. So all of this has been done now. So we're now on step 3. So step 3 is simulate the visitor arrival. Okay, well, this part's going to be really simple. Create a list named visitor IDs. We're going to add these users right here to the ID, and then we'll have to process. Okay, so that part is going to be pretty simple. And you'll notice that in this function we're not returning anything. We're simply going to print inside of the function. So there's no reason to use a return. So we don't need to do that in this case. So the function's created, and now we're going to create our visitor IDs, hard-coded. So this is going to be a list. We can tell it's a list because of the square brackets that we're using. And we're going to use the single quotes this time, and we're going to say user 1, 2, 3, and then remember each element is separated by a comma. User 4, 5, 6, and we need our quotes in there also because these are strings. That's why we need the quotations. We're not passing integers or our decimals or floats. So actually, let me just do this part real quick. I think that's enough. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. We're going to do this one again because we want some repeats so that we can demonstrate what happens when we have the same user log on over and over again. It's funny because I wrote a program to check something like this, but using ports not too long ago for my other job, and so this is kind of interesting that this has come up in this assignment because this is kind of cool. All right, so we have user 1, 2, 3, user 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3 again, a repeat just for demonstration purposes. 7, 8, 9, and 4, 5, 6. So we've created our list, and now the next thing we're going to do is we need to create a nice little for loop in order to pass those new IDs to the function, and that's going to be part 4 here. And it tells us to use a for loop. We're going to do all that, so let's do that. So for loop's pretty simple. We're going to say for visitor in visitor underscore IDs and add underscore visitor visitor. Okay, so just a simple for loop. What happens here is we create a new variable called visitor here, and this variable is going to be assigned to all of the IDs one at a time that's in the list of visitor IDs. So here's your visitor IDs right here, and so it's going to iterate through the list, and each one of these, so for example, iteration 0 will be, or you could say iteration 1 will be user 1, 2, 3, and that 1, 2, 3 will be assigned to visitor, and then visitor gets passed to the add visitor function right here. And so 1, 2, 3 goes in here, well, it goes in, starts here, then goes in here, gets passed to the function, which is right here. This function is this function here, right here, and then goes through this test and either gets added or doesn't get added. So this is the simplest way of doing this assignment, and that becomes the for loop. All right. So now we've created our function, we've created the for list, and that's really about all there is to the for list. Now let's see, what's the next step here? I'll put the total count of unique visitors. The goal is to print the total number of unique visitors after processing all the visitor IDs. Hint, use the built-in len function to determine the number of elements in the unique visitor set. All right, so we're going to do 5 and 6 now. Okay, so to do 5 and 6, what we're going to do is we're going to say this will be pretty simple. We're just going to do a print function, and in the print function, let's see here. The first thing we want to do is we're going to output a string, and that string is going to be, first I'm going to start with a new line, and that backward slash and means new line, so that way that when it goes on the console, it'll be on a new line. And we'll just say total unique visitors, and so that's that, total unique visitors, because that's what it's asking for. And it says to use the len function, so we're going to use len, which is going to tell us the length here, and we're going to say, okay, unique underscore visitors. Oops, not work. I think I did that right. Okay, 1, 2, 2. So 2 and 1 and 2. We're good. Okay, so what we're doing is the len function will tell us how many elements are in the unique visitors. And so, well, that basically equates to the total number of unique unique visitors. So that's really it. There's not really much to this. Backward slash n for a new line, total unique number of visitors, and then the len will do the count of how many unique visitors there are, and that's really it. Let's see here. Okay, so let's run this as I see if this works. Okay, so you can see here each iteration as it went through the list. Here's the list, and it says visitor ID, user ID added. So when it first went through the first one, 1, 2, 3 did not exist, so it was added. Right here it went to the else statement. Then 4, 5, 6 was added. Then the second user, 1, 2, 3, was passed through right here when it went on the list. It went up into the function, and it already existed. So it existed. So if visitor ID is in unique visitors, print has already been counted. So it skips, and when it skips, then it doesn't get added into the visitor ID. It skips this part right here. It never happens. Therefore, it doesn't get added again. And so that's where this happens. Has already been added. And then 7, 8, 9 goes through. 4, 5, 6 has already been added. Done again. And that's it. So total unique visitors is 3. It does the count of unique counts inside of the set, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9. So 3 unique visitor IDs, and that is it. Now there is a second part to the assignment that says, what does it say? To read the visitor IDs from the user input so that we can do it manually. All right, so I'm going to leave this part here, and we're going to do the next part. And so what the next part is going to be is we're going to ask for user input this time. And we're going to say user input, and it's going to be equal to input. We got to pass a message to the user, and the message we're going to say is enter visitor IDs separated by a comma. Okay, and that is really about it there. So once the user has that, then the next step is going to be, and I should probably comment this part here. Okay. Now we're going to strip all the white space from each possible entry. Remember, that's a common practice we need to do just in case there's any extra white space either before or after the user entry. And then we have to split it, so we're going to use the split property, and we're going to split it by comma, so it's going to be comma delimited. And then we're going to enter it into a new list, and then we're going to pass that list to the function that has already been created above. So this part, I think this part can get a little bit challenging. This part here, if you were to get stuck, I think it would be this part right here. So I'm just going to make this really intuitive in the code. So here we're saying visitor IDs from the input. So that's going to be it's going to be the memory location. Now this is going to be assigned a set, but that set is going to be heavily worked on. And so we're going to have our square brackets because it's a set. But now let's work on this set. What we're going to do inside it, before that set gets sent over, it's actually a list. It's going to be a list. Before this information, the IDs that are handed by the user get entered into the memory location for visitors IDs from input, which is the name of our list. In this case, it's a list on line 19. We have to do some things to it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say, the first one we're going to do is we have to create a little bit of a for loop in here. And this is going to get weird, but I think you'll get it. Visitor.strip. This part makes sense. So here, remember, all we're doing is we're eliminating the white space from both the front and the back end of each entry. Okay, so here though we're going to get the for loop. So here we're going to say for visitor in user underscore input dot split. We have to use the split property in order for Python to understand that these are going to be separate entries into the list. And these are going to be separate by a single quote, and we got to have our comma in there. So let me explain this part. I do think this is probably the most difficult line of code to understand. I'm actually going to give it a space to isolate it a little bit. So here we're saying we have our user input. So here the user entered a series of user IDs separated by a comma. And they were all entered into this memory location as a list. Now we're taking that list, user input right here, and using the split property, we're going to split each one of these user IDs that are manually added, and we're doing that by a comma. And that's what this part says, is split them by comma. Or the way a programmer would read this is it's comma delimited. And once we've done that, this is going to separate each one of them by a comma. And so each one of them is going to be assigned this variable visitor. So it's going to loop through all of these. And each one of those is going to have each one of these visitors is going to have the white space stripped from the front and the back end. And once all this is done, so we've iterated through each one, we separated them by a comma, and then we stripped all the white space. Then all of what's left is going to be these individual user IDs inside of a list. And you can see that because of the open square bracket. And then that new list is going to be assigned into this memory location called visitor IDs from input. So this is going to be a nice clean list of the user IDs that were entered by a person manually. Okay, so once we have that new fresh list, then the next thing we need to do is we're going to have to do what we did before. We got to iterate through all the visitors, all the visitor IDs, and add them into that function up above, the add visitor function. So what we need to do is this right here, except for we're doing it for the manual entry ones. So I'll just copy this and stick it here. Now, of course, this isn't right just yet. We have to modify this. So this is going to say for visitor in, but this is not visitor IDs. This is now this list right here, the visitor IDs from input, because this is a different one. So let's stick that here. And then the rest of this is correct. So now we're going to call the function add visitor, which is right here and right here. We're going to pass it the visitor, so that each one of these individually as it iterates through, and then it's going to run its little test. So this is the challenge assignment. That's what this part is here. Okay, so I think that's about it. Let's run this and see what happens here. Okay, so here it ran the first part, then it says enter visitor ID separated by a comma. So I'll do one that's already up there just for fun, 456, comma, and then let's just make some new ones that aren't in there. So I'll say 777, comma, 778, comma, 779, comma, and let's see, 780. And that should be it. Now we'll throw on our user prefix to this real quick. Okay. And you can see the output was quick. Here it says user 456 has already been counted, so it didn't count it again because it already existed in the list. And then the visitor user 777 was added, 778 was added, 779 was added, 780 was added. But I did forget to do the next count. I forgot to write that code. So here we ran this, but I forgot to put the code for the next count. So let's do that. Let's run this again. So this time, let's see. It's just basically copy this right here. And yeah, that's exactly the same. I think it should be the same. Okay, let's run that again. All right, and I'm going to manually enter some users again. Let's see, do the same ones. User 456, comma, user 777, comma, user 778, comma, user 779, comma, and user 780, and that'll work. Okay, and you can see that there was some repeats. 456 already existed, as you can see it did up here. 789 already existed, and you can see it was right here, added the first time. And so there's only 3 new ones, so the total unique visitors in the set is 6. And that's it, from start to finish. I think the hardest part for anyone is going to be right here. This part here, because we're doing a lot inside of the set. Now, here's the thing. Could you take this out and then put the resultant into the set? Yeah, you could. But this is just I guess a programmer would do it probably the way that I did right here, just because it's quick and clean and you can see what's happening. All the splits happening here, and then we go through each visitor. Well, the splits happen with a comma, then we go through each visitor and we strip off the white space, and then what's left is just a nice clean list of user IDs. And that's it. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. This is the solution for the homework problem.